Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Last time on Doctor Who, we finished off the evil of the Daleks. What was that one about? Do you remember?
I don't even remember. They were trying to get the human factor.
Yes.
But the human factor, in order to defeat the humans, turned out to be the wrong thing because the Daleks then began to revolt against the Emperor, and there was this huge blow-up scene. And the old professor, I don't remember even what happened to the old professor, but Waterman, his assistant, whose daughter Victoria had been kidnapped by the Daleks, he sacrificed himself to save the Doctor. And anyway, so Victoria becomes the new companion, and they all flew off to Lord knows where.
Essentially. For more detail, so they were looking for the human factor because they needed to figure out, okay, so this is what makes humans humans. Okay, now that we know that, we're going to turn all humans into Daleks with the Dalek factor, and they wanted to use the TARDIS to go back in time to change all humans in human history into Daleks. And they tried it out on Maxtable, and it worked, and then but the Doctor did have the human factor, and he made those 3 friendly Daleks. And so he then tricked all the Daleks to going through that one doorway to change them all into human Daleks. Then they asked questions and revolted against the Emperor. Then Waterfield did sacrifice himself as the Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria went back to the TARDIS.
Yeah, I keep wanting to call the 3 human Daleks Huey, Dewey, and Louie, but they were Alpha, Beta, and Omega, if I recall his pronunciation correctly.
Yeah. Anyway, today we're watching Tomb of the Cybermen.
And these look like to be complete episodes?
All 4 of them are complete episodes.
Wow. This is one of the first times we've seen all of Troughton's episodes.
Actually, this might be the first time. Where's my... Okay, there it is. Okay, let's see. That had recons. Faceless One was animated. Macro Terror was animated. Moonbase had animated. Underwater Menace had recons. Highlanders. Yes, this is the first time we are watching a complete episode of the Second Doctor.
And we've already seen it.
Yes, we have already seen this episode about 2-ish years ago.
Yeah.
We already watched Tomb of the Cybermen. It was our first introduction to the Second Doctor. You can go watch that, where we don't really have any context, but we're watching the episode anyway. So this is a bit of a strange one that we're both rewatching it. Like, we've done episodes where, like, I'm rewatching an episode, but you're watching it for the first time. But yeah, this time we're both rewatching it, so this is going to be weird.
And I only vaguely remember they land someplace where there's this giant doorway, and when they go inside, there's the Cybermen and an evil genius, and they go down into kind of this basement sort of thing, and the Cybermen are all up in this kind of gigantic hive, and they're all frozen.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm vaguely remembering it.
Yeah. I actually have been avoiding rewatching our reaction so that I could make sure everything was brought back with watching the episode. But yeah, this is a weird one. Because this is the first of the season, full length on this episode is available for free.
Oh.
So if you want to do that, it's down in the description and in the pinned comment. Again, this is another, not the best episode we could be doing this on. And actually the past 5 seasons we've done this, they've never been good because they've either been like reconstructed or Power of the Daleks was animated. Or no, not Power of the Daleks, but it was The Smugglers, which was also still recon. And this one is not great because we've already seen this one. So,
but I like The Smugglers.
Yeah. We are also going to be doing something a little special during the discussion that I haven't told you about. Okay. Basically what I did was a few days ago, I tweeted that we're going to be rewatching this episode, and I said, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and give them. And so we do have some questions. Not a ton. Probably for the best that we don't have a ton. But we have some questions, and we will answer them during the discussion. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And with that said, we should go ahead and get back to Tomb of the Cybermen. Here we go. Oh, it's been so long. Back then, we didn't have anything on the table.
Yeah.
My hair was shorter.
I was younger.
No.
Well, if we count in Earth terms, I suppose I must be about 400... Yes, about 450 years old. Yes. No, quite. Now,
This is the first time he's ever
Victoria
given
might
his
find
own
that
age.
dress a little impracticable if she's going to join us in our adventures. Jamie, show her where she can find some new ones, will you? Right. Now, this way, Victoria.
I don't remember any of this.
Try
Yeah.
to give us a smooth takeoff, Doctor.
I remember
We don't
this.
want to frighten her. A smooth takeoff. A smooth takeoff?
Oh,
What a
perfect.
nerve!
I do remember this, but
This is what I
seems-
remember.
Yeah. This seems like way more... I don't know, like, the way they're using the camera is a bit different than normal.
Sorry, we had to make it a pretty big one.
All right, let's get on with it. We've wasted enough time.
Yeah, this seems like the camera work is so much different, but it could be that we haven't watched a full episode in a long time.
Yeah.
I guess the last 100% episode might have been like the War Machines.
Well, come on! What are we waiting for?
I don't remember that stock laughter sound effect, though.
Sounded like an engine. Something came down over there, behind that rock.
Okay, Miner, slow down. I'll take care of this. Jim?
Okay, I've got it.
Great American accents.
Yeah.
You guys stay right here. I'll take care of it.
Archaeologist written all over him. Really doesn't show. There, you see?
Nah.
It's impossible to keep a secret in the scientific
He's a
world.
time traveler. He laughs at archaeologists.
Tell him, Doctor.
We're searching the universe for the last remains of the Cybermen.
Cybermen? You mean to say they came from here?
But of course, Telos was their home.
Well,
So they-
you coming back to the rocket with me?
How do they come from here if Mondas...
You're not going on with
Well.
this, are you?
You look very nice in that dress, Victoria.
Thank you. Don't you think it's a bit...
A bit short. Oh, I shouldn't worry about that. Look at Jamie's. Hey, I'll have you know that... Oh, aye. Come along. Come along, let's go and see what the others are doing. shall
Yes, a
we?
Victorian woman wouldn't wear a dress that short.
Yeah. I remember last time you commented on her handbag. Now it's even weirder because Jamie had to pick that out.
Just look at this place.
These controls are of the earlier dynasties. So very
Victorian women didn't even show their ankles.
Hey, for heaven's sake, watch out until we know what it is.
Oh, it's as dead as a stone.
Oh yeah, the Cybermats.
What was it?
Cybermat, I think.
Then the indices show the basic binary blocks. Only I wouldn't do it if I were you. Oh, no, I really wouldn't do it. Of course, you're right.
It'd destroy the world, but I wouldn't do it if I were you.
Yeah. Good job.
Famous last words, Doctor.
Right! Victoria, are you all right? It's all right. Get your breath. It's all right. Now, come along. We must go and see whether Jamie is all right. Come along.
See, I don't remember any of her motivations.
Some way to get that actual...
Like why she would try that.
What's the matter, Doctor? Which one was it? Which one was?
Okay. That's part one.
Oh, that went rather quickly.
Yeah. I think we said that last time too.
I mean,
Well, especially after the Daleks. So, all right. Well, it is interesting watching this in context now because it's like, okay, so Telos is apparently the home of the Cybermen, but Mondas was. Now they say in future Doctor Who episodes that basically wherever human society is, eventually there will be Cybermen. Like the Cybermen are always inevitable. So presumably, like on Mondas, whatever, Telos, this place, they did just naturally evolve until someone created the Cybermen. So, but that is interesting that they're kind of, I don't want to say like contradicting their own, lore, but it's interesting they haven't mentioned Mondas in relation to this. Yeah. So, and I don't remember, I don't remember the one woman's like motivation. Like, why did she try to, I guess, convert Victoria?
Yeah, we haven't really seen that yet. And again, completely reversed. I remember this from 2 years ago as Toberman getting electrocuted, but I guess I was wrong about that.
Yeah, I think eventually he'll have like a fight with the Cybermen. Yeah. So, but yeah, so I'm not really sure about like the motivation and stuff, and also I guess just the, they're so determined to get into the tomb of the Cybermen, and I guess that's really just the archaeological curiosity, like, that would be kind of like the, I don't want to say like the rival archaeologist like in an Indiana Jones movie, but it is sort of like that.
Yeah.
This does kind of make me wish I had got out my notes from when we first did that. I think I still have that book. I'm not sure where though. Might be in one of my drawers. Yeah. So, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. Like I'm, obviously I'm very invested in it, but we're obviously, getting more context now that we know everything. Yeah. And other context that makes it stranger that, last time we knew, Victoria, she's from Victorian times, and we just didn't really put any thought into, her new dress and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, Jamie picked out that dress, I guess, or at least helped her find one, and then clearly helped her do up her hair. And also, unless she picked that bag, which is possible, but she probably doesn't have anything in that bag.
Yeah, she didn't bring anything with her.
Yeah, so that just seems kind of odd. It's like, wait, why does she have that? She doesn't need that. So, yeah.
But again, I also noticed that I think before Jamie had been wearing somewhat of a like a cable knit sweater sort of thing, which would have been more time period, and now he's wearing just a normal kind of khaki shirt with his kilt. So
yeah, which is interesting. Which of course, what distinguishes him from the other guys we've had is the kilt that he wears. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's honestly pretty classic male companion shirt that he has. Like Ian and Steven wore that, and probably Ben at some point too. So.
Any time, Doctor.
Now, there is a distinct element of risk in what I'm asking you all to do, so if anyone wishes to leave, they must do so at once. Not you, Jamie. But you stop this. He'll kill us all.
It's a cybermat.
What's a cybermat?
It's one of those.
I leave it alone.
Well, thanks.
Come along.
Ah, that's what the bag was for.
Yeah. So, since when does the Doctor have a book about the Cybermen, or is that just a general, like, Dr. Jones notebook?
Yeah.
I just don't understand this code. The sequence doesn't make complete sense.
You a logician? You can't understand it?
But in the time we have.
We have plenty of time.
I think last time we misheard logician as magician, and that caused confusion.
Until then, I'm going to keep a round-the-clock guard on it.
I see.
I'm going to get off this place with my skin still fitting tight all over, all right?
All right.
Very specific phrase.
What I said, be very careful.
Seems we are to be left alone to wait.
Victoria, this would be a good time to become the successor to Barbara the Warrior.
It's closed. Oh, what's the use? We're trapped down here now. We'll never survive in this cold.
Jamie could wear pants under his kilt.
Aye.
As the professor says, this is a unique archaeological event. It would be such a pity to miss it.
You do know who the Cybermen are, right?
Now, are these the first Cybermen or the second Cybermen, or is this a third design altogether?
It looks more like the second design.
Yeah.
It's got, the claw and stuff. I think the helmets might be a bit updated, though. I guess this is the Cybermen's theme song, because they use this in the moon base too.
Keep still.
It's weird that the Cyberman has very doofy eyes. Jeez.
Don't know that she would know how to use a gun. I mean, guns were... Certainly, pistols were used, but not that kind.
Yeah.
And as a young Victorian woman, she wouldn't have known how to use one, I don't think.
Well, it's a good step in becoming the next warrior.
Yeah.
I guess that's the salute.
You need our mass intelligence. Are you listening? Do you understand me? Now that I have
Computer
released
needs
you...
your intelligence.
You shall be like us.
Well, their voices are certainly more menacing now.
Yeah. Okay. And that is part 2. Alright. So, it's not just the archaeological curiosity, because even the one guy that was doing the expedition, he didn't want to revive the Cybermen, he just wanted to find them. But
well, that's like the Mummy movie, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So, of course, no one wanted to revive Imhotep in that movie. That was a complete accident. So the logicians wanted the power of the Cybermen to do something. Well, I didn't quite get that.
They're trying to combine their collective intelligence with the physical power of the Cybermen to supposedly end up ruling the world.
Right. But, so they're offering, their intelligence, but they're talking to robots, or, cyborgs, but you really think you have the intelligence you can offer them?
Well, that's the problem sometimes in these, people with what they think are super intelligent. They don't understand that sometimes you simply cannot reason with power.
Yeah.
You cannot reason with the cyborgs. It's like you can't reason with the Daleks because they have an overarching purpose to their existence, and no matter what you say to them, it will not convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we certainly got that all cleared up about the logicians.
Yes, that was a really bad misunderstanding the first time around.
Well, because instead of saying logicians, they were saying logicians.
Yeah.
And logicians sounds like magicians.
Yeah.
And since we couldn't see their mouths that well.
Yeah, so it's a very distinct
apologies.
difference. Also, I'm just now realizing you might be wearing the same thing from the last video.
Well, if it was in the middle of the winter, your room is freezing cold.
I don't know. Let me see if I can...
While you're looking that up, here in central Oklahoma, we are now going to go through roughly 7 days of below freezing temperatures. This will be the coldest stretch. It does look like the same thing. Except that I was wearing a different colored shirt. I was wearing the pink shirt, and now I'm wearing a white shirt.
Yeah. I don't even wear those shirts that I'm wearing anymore. So, man, what a difference.
But it's very cold, and you may have heard me grumble about this before. Alex has a fan overhead, which he keeps on because he works in this room all the time, and he's got all the machines going. I only come in here, for the 2 or 3 hours over the weekend, and, it's seriously like sitting in a meat locker. We could, you got Rocky Balboa back there punching some beef, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Meanwhile, I think it's warm in here,
No.
and, when I, assemble the entire set, I was thinking, man, I should turn that up on high. It's on medium right now, but I left it as medium because you get cold.
And I'm to the point where I may start wearing either my light jacket or my hoodie because, I've got the sweater on, but I'm still freezing.
All right, then. Anyway, but yes, how much time has passed? We have things on the table. We have sonic screwdrivers and a mug and a TARDIS. So, and I've got more stuff back here on the shelf. So,
and at some point we'll figure out how to hang the poster.
Yeah, at some point. Honestly, that just comes down to we just have to remember to do it and then do it. So, yeah.
We knew that somebody like you would come to our planet someday.
Yes, and we've done exactly as you calculated, haven't we?
Now you belong to us.
So they did want... they do technically want the intelligence.
Yeah.
No!
Ah, yes, the lunar surface.
Our machinery had stopped, and our supply of replacements being depleted.
So that's why you attacked the moon base.
You had destroyed our first planet, and we were becoming extinct.
What difference does capturing us make?
So they
You'll
were
still
from
become
Mondas
extinct.
then.
Wires.
Oh, yeah, you can see those. Oh, yeah.
You would let go of me! I would stand still! Please, breaking them!
Wires, and they sped that up a bit. You know, it's interesting that for Toberman, they had to get a big guy to play him. And then they had to get bigger guys in order to play the Cybermen. Kick 'em. And they look even doofier.
The gun, Eric, the gun. You have the Cybermen's own weapon, this laser, to turn against them. Now they will have to obey.
You
If they
have
refuse,
one gun.
I shall destroy the opening device and seal them up in their tomb forever. Now do you understand?
They all have guns in their hands. And there's like 20 of them.
Come, let us see what he
I'm on your side, remember? Hey!
Victoria's a little trigger happy, actually.
You can't understand being so ancient.
Hey?
I mean old. You probably can't
Yeah, that's
remember
better.
your family.
Oh, yes, I can when I want to. And that's the point, really. I have to really want to bring them back in front of my eyes. The rest of the time, they sleep in my mind, and I forget. And so will you. Oh, yes, you will. You'll find there's so much else to think about, to remember. Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting thing. Nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.
Except the monk, and the master, and the other Time Lords.
Well, I was gonna say they haven't been established at this point, but the monk has.
Move, Callum, don't move.
Just slap it.
Oh no, it's a turtle. It can't get back on its 1,000 feet. Oh, there it goes.
It took a sec.
Controls all of you infuse their tiny metal minds. You might almost say they've had a complete mental breakdown.
Oh.
I'm so sorry.
What about Cleve and Captain? They'll probably attack them as well.
Dad joke from the doctor.
Come on, now mind your feet.
You think anyone's like
Most ingenious,
dressed up a
Doctor.
Roomba to look
Now,
like a
let's see what we
Cyberman?
can do against this.
Watch out, Doctor!
I was thinking that it's like, oh, what will you do against this? And the other guy just like, oh, well, I have one bullet left, and he just shoots him. He's like, oh, guess that's that.
Well, I have to say, again, not a spare moment in any of the 3 episodes we've seen so far. I mean, I think, to its credit, if this had been stretched out to 6 episodes, this would have gotten way off track.
Yeah.
But they have, they've condensed the writing, and the story, although we're still not exactly sure what the objective of the of is it Klieg or Krieg? I mean, yes, he
Yeah.
wants to combine the logician's intelligence with that of the Cybermen's physical strength, but did he not expect that they would want to assimilate him?
Yeah.
There seems to be a flaw in the otherwise perfect logic of his argument there.
Yeah, it's like, if you know so much about the Cybermen, you would think you would know their whole purpose is to convert everyone. So I don't know. I did like that moment where the Doctor is talking about his family, because, later on they'll have, moments like that, and it's like, ah, man, the Doctor is like 2,000 years old now, but he still remembers them, after all this time. But it's even interesting now because you kind of wonder, like, well, of course, you always wonder what was the rest of his family like. We know Susan, who wasn't too far off from where the second Doctor is now, but we really don't know anything else about his family. So,
and again, first time viewing that, we wouldn't have known about her father, when she talked about him being gone.
Yeah.
I don't remember her mentioning the Daleks before.
Yeah, it is one of those like, oh, interesting, I don't remember those lines. We probably just didn't pay attention to it enough last time. So, yeah, I don't know. I've always wondered just what the Doctor's family was like, but they'll pretty much never tell us. Yeah. But I do know there are some theories to it. Like, I know there's like one theory that Susan isn't even his granddaughter. Like, there's a whole thing like he's like a reincarnation of some other Time Lord, and that original version had a granddaughter, and then the Doctor went back in time. She was convinced that he was that person, and then they traveled together. So, I don't know. It's not like they're very consistent with the Doctor's origins anyway.
But that was a very nice moment.
Yeah, I like that. And it's also interesting, too, because they play up like, oh, you're so old, you're ancient and stuff. And it's like, oh, well, I'm very lively. It's like, yeah, that was the whole purpose of changing his face. He rejuvenated himself. It's like, you should have seen the other guy. So.
Watch out, Doctor!
Where was that trigger he pulled?
Didn't we say this was just a reverse of the film because it shows the plastic being put back in place?
Yeah.
Cybermen, it is good that you are back. Watch them.
The fact that he's not looking or blinking doesn't give him away.
He seems,
Yes, Jimmy, yes.
You don't see the robot arm he has?
Do you agree to accept our plan?
Plan?
The conquest of the Earth.
What? You must be serious.
Alright, so it is conquest.
You will help us. You will help us.
Yes, certainly.
Oh, they're doing that British dropping the H thing.
Show me to see actually.
You got any of that human factor left over?
I hope you made those ropes secure.
Oh, the king of the beasts himself couldn't get out of that one. Good.
Good job, Jamie. Oh, that had to be fun.
Jamie, remind me to give you a lesson in tying knots sometime.
I told you to watch that door.
So long, Eric.
Victoria!
Someone grab the gun. Not him.
You have broken your promise.
Cybermen do not promise. Such ideas have no value. Open.
I was gonna say.
No!
Pray I don't alter it further. Oh, they're out. Oh, did they switch him out for a dummy? Yep. Ow.
Shoot him. Decapitate him.
Kick him. Good job, Jamie.
Smoking's bad for your health.
Duh.
Oh, Mr. Carroll, how are you feeling?
I can't wait.
Quit setting the gun down.
Get the gun and shoot him.
Start ripping stuff out of the console. Oh no, pus. this is where he gets burned.
We must survive.
You, Cyberman, come away!
Careful, you'll get killed, man!
They shall never pass, Cyberman.
You shall not
Door
pass.
is closed.
Well, that really is the end of the Cybermen, isn't it?
Yes, Jamie? On the other hand,
Except for
I
the
never like to
Cybermen.
make predictions.
Yeah.
Come along.
It's interesting, you're leaving this one a bit more open-ended.
Now, a last name like Klieg would make him sound German,
Well,
but he did not appear to look German. His accent was one of those unintelligible accents, could have been anything.
well.
But anyway,
Okay. That was Tomb of the Cybermen again.
Redux,
Yeah.
part 2.
Well, I mean, it's better in context.
Yeah, and again, seriously, worked very well as a 4-parter. I think if they had stretched that out, it would have been strained.
Yeah. Now, actually, there's only one more 4-parter of the Second Doctor's era. Everything else is 6. So, well, there may be some 5-parters technically.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, only one other 4-parter. So,
And again, the only major flaw, and it wasn't really a flaw, it's because you have to happen. Every time they set that gun down, Klieg or Captain picked it up.
yeah. So, and it's also one of those, like, when he goes over and he messes with the controls again, this is when it would be nice for a good chop, and then he falls. Just maybe this is why the Doctor will be like, I need to learn something so I can knock someone down, even if it's not too violent. Just be sure I can disable a person. So I get the feeling that's going to be really nice once we get to Pertwee. That it's like, finally, he hit him, he kicked him. This will be great. So, to kind of go through the notes again, I wish I had grabbed my other notebook ahead of time, so maybe we could have looked at those notes too. Yeah. But the first thing I wrote down this time around was the 450. So that is a confirmed age. Now it's interesting, when you think about some of these doctors, like later on, Eccleston will say he's about 900 years old. And then for a little while, up through Matt Smith, that only goes up by only a couple years, to where I think Matt Smith at one point says he's 907, which means it's like, okay, well, has it only been 7 years between the 9th Doctor and the 11th Doctor? Whereas, here it's like, okay, we do know that we're still pretty early on in the 2nd Doctor's life, so most of that 450 years has been the 1st Doctor, from when he was born to when he regenerated. But then you get to like the 10th Doctor, it's like, so are we saying the 10th Doctor only lasted a couple years? Like, that just seems sort of odd.
Yeah.
But it was nice to get some sort of defined age. Yeah. Of course, that also means that, well, and okay, here's the other thing. There's no consistency with the Doctor's age, because I think at some point McCoy says he's like 970, and he's the 7th Doctor, but then the 9th Doctor says he's only 900. So how does that work? Is the Doctor just lying about his age? Which, I mean, it's possible. So it's best not to think too much about that. Yeah. The only other thing I've thought is, I think someone pointed out that it's possible that either the 8th Doctor or the War Doctor actually restarted his age. So it's possible that maybe the War Doctor, going through the Time War, was around 800 years old, then regenerated into the 9th, went on for 100 years, then he was 900. So, yeah. It gets a little complicated, but once they establish that 900, they keep pretty consistent with it, actually. So,
I thought it was kind of unusual. I mean, it was nice for Victoria to sit down and talk to the Doctor. But we don't get a whole lot of her background. And the fact that she catches on rather quickly in these 4 episodes to what's going on, Again, if there's anything that could, in my opinion, could have improved on it, would it be to have a little bit more somehow her learning curve, where she begins to understand, kind of like Vicky did and Stephen did and all the rest of them did, that, and Polly, where even after just 1 or 2 episodes, they begin to pick up on the idea that okay, just go along with whatever the doctor says.
Yeah, and I mean some of it. You could say maybe like the more fantastical elements about this, you could explain away that, well, she has encountered the Daleks already, and we don't know how long she was being held by the Daleks. So some of that, the mysticism of these metal men and stuff like that is already sort of she's already got a handle on that with the Daleks. But there is some of it like just like whenever the Doctor just goes on these long tangents and stuff, it's like you just sort of let him go. You'll figure it out, the important things, once you get there. So yeah. Let's see. So we are on Telos right now. That's this planet, which is apparently the next home after Mondas. And they said something about the moon base that like they were, I don't know. I didn't quite catch everything, but it was like after their defeat by the first Doctor on Mondas, they waited around. Somehow they still survived, even though they showed they pretty much all died. But some of them escaped, became they upgraded themselves, and I guess they were seeking a new power, which took them to the moon base to attack it. And then after that, they pretty much had to go into hibernation for a while, which landed them in the ice tombs of Telos. I think.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking.
Yeah. Which, to their credit, they're trying to keep a continuity with them, which the Daleks haven't had. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, well, how are the Daleks back? I don't know, time travel. Don't think about it, whereas...
It seems to be that Kit Pedler, Dr. Pedler, had a better idea of where he was going with this than Terry Nation did ultimately with the Daleks. Ultimately, those last couple of Dalek things, Terry Nation had nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
But, from the original Dalek to the second Dalek, they're still, even though they were both Terry Nation, it's like, wait a minute, how did this happen?
You could even say, because I think we're taking a break from the Daleks for a little while, and not only so, Evil and Power were just not written by Terry Nation at all, and then the last one he wrote for was the Daleks' Master Plan, and even that he wrote half of it, technically less than half if you don't want to count the Christmas episode in there. So it could be that it's like, okay, the Daleks, like, they were great and everyone does love them, but we can't keep these things on lockdown. They're getting a little too confusing. Terry's not really keeping any sort of continuity between them, and like we need to rework this. Plus, he was still trying to sell them to an American show basically. So they're like, okay, let's do something else and let's try to keep some consistency with it. So that could have been how we got to the Cybermen. So they're sort of our new Daleks basically. Let's see. I did write down context, that it was nice watching this, having watched, everything else, and like knowing Victoria's backstory and everything like that.
Again, my only real complaint, and I mentioned it before, is very hard to understand them. You remember in the first time we saw them, their voices were kind of, I don't want to say silly, but they weren't menacing at all. Now here they were more menacing, but also more difficult to understand.
Yeah, and I mean, because of the way the place that we watch these on, we just don't have subtitles, I think.
If we just watched all 4 of these and we don't have subtitles.
Yeah. I don't think. Pretty sure there aren't subtitles on archive.org. But, I mean, if... The thing is, with the way we watch these, there are other services like BritBox that we could get, and those would have subtitles, but they also have like every other serial. Like they really don't have. I don't even think they have the animated episodes. Like they don't have the recons. They don't have the animated episodes. They have the complete serials. But like we said, the last complete serial before this one was the War Machines. So if you were following classic Doctor Who on BritBox, that means you watch the War Machines and then you watch this, basically. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they keep in the 10th Planet because the last one is just animated, but still, I'm not really sure about that. So yeah, it would be helpful. Hopefully, the next time we get the Cybermen, which I have no idea when that will be, hopefully next time their voices are a bit more clear. Because even the Daleks are pretty easy to understand.
Yeah.
So, let's see. We had the Cybermats, which I guess that's how we're going to get the Cybermen back, is with the Cybermats. I assume then that either the Cybermat goes in and is able to free them, or just makes new Cybermen.
Yeah, that was also somewhat sketchy, but we're assuming that because they are a metal life form, they are the ones that will somehow connect with humanoids to create Cybermen. Is that the idea?
I guess it's sort of left open though how they will return someday. So I have no idea when the next Cyberman story is going to be, because I mean when we were going through classic Doctor Who, the tour, the next one would have been Earthshock in the 5th Doctor's era. So yeah, I have no idea, and I don't know if they actually show up in the 3rd Doctor's era at all. So I have no idea. Anyway, let's see. We had the whole thing of this army to conquer the Earth, which, I mean, that was kind of interesting. It did sort of, I don't want to say devolve, but obviously the madness took over Eric after a while. But it was interesting. It's like, okay, so the Logicians, they want to basically remake the world because it's, I guess, not logical. It could be a lot better. But if we do the Wonder Woman meme, the world is good, but it could be better. So yeah, I still don't. It is still one of those things where it's like, you really think the Cybermen are going to help you with that? Like, yeah, they will try to make the world better, but it'll be their world where everyone's a Cyberman.
Yeah, that's the fatal flaw in all of these things, is thinking that you can reason with machines that literally have no capacity to reason anything other than their specific primary directive.
Yeah.
The Dalek is, and the Cybermen and some of these others are saying, we are the master race. You cannot, you can work with them, but ultimately you will fall under them. Everyone will fall under them.
Yeah.
And how he does not understand that. I mean, that's a logical conclusion to understand.
It's one of those, like, you can't, like, being true allies doesn't really work. And the only way you really can't go half and half with them. If, like, it's either you submit or you beat them, and the Doctor is always on the I can beat them side.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else, it's like, no, you will either fall under them or you will die, basically. Yeah. So it does sort of remind me a bit of Mavic Chen, where it's like, oh, well, yes, I am important to the Daleks. They will keep me alive, and eventually I will beat them myself and take over the universe then. It's like, I don't think you understand who the Daleks are.
Have you read a single piece of fiction over the last 5,000 years?
Yeah.
You cannot win.
Yeah, so the only person who can win is the Doctor, but the only reason he can is because he is the Doctor, specifically, because he is that smart. His intelligence is the only thing that rivals them. So, but I mean, it is still an interesting idea of, trying to reshape the world and stuff. I would almost want, like, an episode where they do go back to Earth, and it is like the Logicians, trying to reshape the Earth without the Cybermen. Like, oh, that was his idea to go get the Cybermen, but we're doing it this way, and then the Doctor has to stop them. So that could be an interesting episode. I don't know if they would bring that back, though. Let's see. I guess other than that, it's interesting. They gave Toberman one of the arms, but that was really it. Yeah. Which I didn't remember that. I remembered that he was they started to control him, but I didn't remember them giving him a specific cyber arm, which is interesting.
And were they simply interrupted and weren't able to complete him in time, or how did that work? I didn't catch
I think
that.
it was just that I think they did complete him. It's just that they weren't doing a full conversion. They were just doing enough to take control of him, and then I guess send him back in. He would have their trust, and then defeat them.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So later on, if they had won, they would have fully converted him after that. So, which we still haven't seen a full Cyberman conversion yet. Although, I mean, I guess they sort of allude to it in the moon base. So, but that's actually all the notes I got.
Well, again, really well written, held together. Didn't see any glaring problems other than, why would you ever set a gun down?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that didn't happen once or twice. That happened like 4 or 5 different times when the bad guys picked up the gun that the good guys had set down.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's just a set piece in science fiction and other things, But, again, once or twice would have been acceptable. But as many times as they did that, that's just, it seems a little ridiculous.
Yeah. And, again, speaking of guns, it is strange how trigger-happy Victoria was. We always joke Barbara was the warrior, and we haven't really had a successor to her, and it's like, it's not quite being a warrior, but she's a bit trigger happy, actually. So now I hope that is the running thing, that anytime there is a gun, Victoria's the one that gets it. So even if she doesn't even shoot people, as long as she gets it and starts pointing at people, that'd just be amazing. All right. We do have some questions here on Twitter. I'm going to zoom this in so we can properly read it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I did put out a tweet doing this. I don't know how this is going to go, really, but we may or may not do this for 4 episodes from now when we rewatch The Web of Fear. But I was thinking maybe at least the first episode, the first rewatch of each Doctor. So the next one for the 3rd Doctor would be like Terror of the Autons. So, anywho.
All right.
We have a lot of multi questions, which is perfectly fine. This is actually similar. I did something for the end of Merlin where I was like, "Oh, give me your questions." I got 100 questions. It was such a long video, but luckily we don't have that much. So, question number 1: which classic companion do you think could have worked with a modern Doctor? And some of these aren't specifically about Tomb of the Cybermen, but that's okay too. I think Jamie would have worked great with the 10th Doctor. If you could choose to travel with any Doctor, who would it be, specifically?
Well, of course, for me, it would be William Hartnell.
Yeah.
Other than Hartnell, again, we've only done a couple of episodes with each one.
Yeah.
Troughton is growing on me.
Yeah.
I like Pertwee. Tom Baker. Who's the Doctor with Ace? Which one is he?
McCoy.
Yeah. Maybe. He strikes me as a little unusual.
Yeah.
The two in between McCoy and Tom Baker, probably not. They.
Yeah.
Again, personally, I wouldn't have cared for them much. I was intrigued by Eccleston because he seemed like such a working class Doctor in the one that we saw. And Tennant and Matt Smith, again, would have been fun. I would have been way older than either one of them, so even in my younger days, I don't know if that would have been a good mix. But again, for me, traveling with William Hartnell would have been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Now, see, I was thinking, well, I would want a Doctor who can actually control the TARDIS. So that eliminates the first 3, basically. I wouldn't want a modern one because all of their companions die or have horrible fates, so I wouldn't want them. I don't know how well I would get along with Colin Baker. Even McCoy would be kind of odd. So I was like, okay, that just sort of leaves Tom Baker and Davison. And And it's like, probably just go with Tom Baker then out of them. And nothing wrong with the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah,
but
nothing wrong with Davison. It's just, personally, who would we travel with? That would be my choice.
Yeah. So I'd probably go with Tom Baker. But now, if I could go with a modern Doctor and not be killed or have a horrible fate, then either... I'd say maybe the 10th Doctor, because he's honestly the most human of them. Now, like, I know I've said on other videos that I actually prefer the more alien side of, like, some of the other modern Doctors, but if we're going with who would I get along with the most, it would probably be the 10th Doctor, because he is the most human.
Yeah.
So...
But, my background in history, again, knowing what the program was supposed to be originally, I would have thought I would have enjoyed, meeting the Greeks and going to ancient Rome and even, gunfight at the OK Corral, that sort of stuff. I would have enjoyed that.
Yeah. Let's see. Also looking forward to how different, if at all, your opinions will be on the story on a rewatch. Remember you guys liking it a lot the first time. Same with Web of Fear and other stories. So, has our opinion changed on Tomb of the Cybermen?
Again, it has improved because we now understand the context a little bit more.
Yeah, and even just, understanding the Cybermen. Like, we didn't, like, I had seen, like, a couple episodes of the Cybermen from modern Doctor Who, but they had nothing to do with Mondas or Telos or anything like that. So knowing the context of the 10th planet and the moon base going into this, like, okay, I start to get it, even if it is a little like, okay, so how did you get from Mondas to here? I thought you all died when Mondas exploded, but whatever. So, let's see. In one of your previous reactions, as you were approaching the Second Doctor's era, you said that you expect 2 and his era to be mostly fun and goofy. Has 2 and his era lived up to this expectation so far? Kind of half and half.
Yeah. Hartnell was so deadly serious most of the time.
Yeah.
And Troughton has brought a definite change to that presentation, to that characterization.
Yeah.
It's not goofy. It's certainly more lighthearted, whimsical.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because even the comedic moments with Hartnell, the comedic part of it is that he is still kind of serious. Yeah. Like, when everyone's like, "Oh, howdy, Doc," he's like, "Howdy." Why am I saying this? Like, he would be a bit more serious.
Don't call me Doc.
Yeah. Very similar to "Don't Call Me Vic" in this episode. So, yeah, it wasn't exactly like, oh, this is, a lot goofier than the first Doctor's era, but it is a bit more lighthearted. Let's see. I ask because I'd argue the Second Doctor is actually quite dark. He's a dark, manipulative Doctor who often hides behind a facade of silliness to lull his enemies into a false sense of security. He's also been shown to be quite ruthless in stories like Power and Evil of the Daleks. He definitely... Well, he's a bit more a proactive Doctor than the first Doctor. The first Doctor was always roped into situations and never really wanted to be in those situations.
I don't quite see him as dark. I will say this. The 2 episodes that we watched of Eccleston and Tennant, that was a much darker kind of Doctor. The fact that Eccleston essentially caused that last Dalek to commit suicide, and then Tennant, the one we saw with the Waters of Mars, or
yes,
yeah,
where he does end up saving them, trying to rewrite history,
and then ends up not being able to do that. So, I see his point, and maybe as we go along, further into Troughton's tenure, we'll see a bit of that darkness. I'm not seeing it yet, but he's definitely manipulative. He's definitely more of a watch the whole situation and formulate a plan. And when Jamie says, "Oh, but Doctor, don't do that," he goes, "Trust me, Jamie, I know what I'm doing." So Hartnell rarely ever did that. So yes, I understand that point.
Yeah. His era has also leaned more towards horror than the first Doctor, such as Power and Evil of the Daleks, Moonbase, Macroterror, and the Faceless Ones. Yeah, there is a bit more, like, I guess, sort of the even body horror, and a lot of that is also with the Cybermen. So, yeah, I could see that. It's definitely... The stories are a lot different from the first Doctor's era, so...
And again, a lot of Hartnell stuff were definitely just historical type things.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that's the reason I started watching it, is because, having people from the 1960s be able to travel back in time and meet Marco Polo and, meet Emperor Nero and all that sort of stuff, that was what fascinated me in the first place.
Yeah, I mean... The last historical episode that we had that didn't have any aliens was the Highlanders. So,
yeah.
And that again was another just the Doctor is sort of being dragged into this situation, then he gets out. Whereas like last episode with the evil of the Daleks, although that is still sort of the thing of the Daleks are dragging him in, but it is still different because it's like, oh well, now it's not just that I have to get back to the TARDIS, I must defeat the Daleks in whatever plan they have. Let's see. Do you agree with people who criticize the portrayal of Toberman as racist, since in the story he's basically just a strong savage who barely speaks?
Again, that's very similar to Kamal in the last one.
Yeah.
But again, yes, from a 21st century perspective, it does become somewhat racist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But from a 1960s perspective, that was the very awakening of the idea that, hey, the way we have portrayed black people and the Arabs and the people of India and China and all that. I mean, think about the Emperor and Marco Polo. I mean, that was a somewhat cringeworthy portrayal, especially since why didn't they get an actual Chinese actor to play that?
Yeah.
So that sort of thing. But again, that's very typical of the 1960s, and one of the things that I've tried to tell my students as a history teacher is try not to judge people from other time periods by our standards, because that's not what that time period was like. We look today at the American South leading up to the Civil War as being horribly racist, and yes, it was, but to them, seriously, that was their way of life. That was their idea. They said, listen, if you banned slavery immediately, it would collapse the economy. And quite honestly, it would have. If we had outright banned slavery, freed the slaves in the 1830s or 1840s, the economy of the United States would have collapsed. But that does not still validate anything that there's. What they didn't understand was you have a moral obligation not to own other people. So even if we don't ban slavery outright, we have to figure out a way to phase it out. And yes, would that have been the lesser of evils? Yes, I fully guarantee that it would have been still an evil process. But at some point, you have to take, everyone's, from the very bottom to the very top, everybody's perspective, and try to, at least we don't have to agree with it, but we do have to understand that's the way they thought.
Yeah. And also with Toberman, I feel like there's plenty of things nowadays where it's like, it's not just like, oh, it's the big, strong, like, black guy, but it's just the big, strong guy. That is just sort of a character. Like, if you have a movie where it's like, okay, we need a really strong guy, or it's like, okay, well, get someone like Schwarzenegger. It's like, okay, yeah, someone built, basically. So it's just that's just what they thought of.
Yeah, in the early 70s, again, in the James Bond films, you did have Oddjob in Goldfinger, but later on in, I want to say it was Moonraker, they had this guy, Richard Kyle, who's like, 7 feet tall, and he had metal teeth. They called him Jaws, basically, so probably mid to late 70s. Anyway, so yeah, it's just they need some kind of muscle, and unfortunately, at this particular instance, they hired a black guy, just as in the previous episode, they hired the Turk to be the muscle there.
Yeah. All right. The next question. Do you think watching random stories from later Doctors has spoiled things for you, since you know certain details already? Like how you knew about Adric's death, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen that, knew about Adric's death before you even met him, and you knew that Ben and Polly had to be gone before this story.
To me, no, because, again, and I've mentioned this to you before, it's like when I watched the film 1776. It's a musical about the writing of the American Declaration of Independence. We know how it ends. We know that Thomas Jefferson writes the Declaration. We know that it's approved by the Congress. We know that the war happens. But watching that film, you sit and listen to the arguments, and you go, how did they ever get this thing passed? And then, you see all the confrontations. You see the Southern objections. You see John Adams being obnoxious. And you see Ben Franklin going, gentlemen, please, we have to do this. What's his famous line? We must all hang together or surely we will all hang separately. So, no, knowing that Ben and Polly weren't going to be around for this doesn't, for me anyway, take away any of the drama or the suspense of it. It's just that now we begin to wonder, wait a minute, we must be getting close to the end of Ben and Polly, so makes us wonder, how are they going to leave?
Yeah.
I think we were caught completely off guard by Dodo's departure.
Right.
But we kind of figured out that somehow or other they were going to get Ben and Polly back to literally the very day that they left, and sure enough, when they landed there at Gatwick, at the very first episode, we went, wait a minute, if this is back in 1966, I wonder if it's the very day that they left or within a couple of days so that they could get back in time. So, no, for me it doesn't, anyway.
And honestly, one thing about watching Doctor Who, even if you start with the first Doctor or you start with the Ninth Doctor or anyone, you kind of have that anyway because if you watch the serial, the Doctor's going to die right here. It's the end of the show. It's like, well, no. First off, that just wouldn't happen in a show. And also, pretty much that there are other Doctors. Even now, maybe the only thing is if you don't know particularly when the Doctor will regenerate, that is sort of the suspense. But it's also like watching like a prequel movie, basically, or the Star Wars prequels. And maybe this isn't the best example, but you watch the prequels like, okay, Anakin's gonna make it out alive, or Obi-Wan will. But then you have all these other characters like, okay, well, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. You don't know how many limbs Anakin's going to lose before he actually becomes Vader. Because I think he already loses one of them in Attack of the Clones, and then obviously he has to lose the others before, they put him in the suit. And even with something like the Clone Wars, which I know you're not the biggest fan of the Clone Wars, but you have...
a fan.
Yeah. But you bring in a character like Ahsoka, and it's like, okay... Well, Ahsoka, she's not in the movie, so what happened? So, like, while the Clone Wars was originally airing, we all went through, like, okay, is she going to die then? Is Anakin going to kill her as part of Order 66? So that's sort of the suspense you get. So, I wouldn't say it spoiled things, but it's just an interesting little way of viewing Doctor Who. Yeah. So, okay. Sort of an obvious question, but now that you've seen the episodes leading into Tomb of the Cybermen, did that change the view you originally had? And also, do you feel Troughton's Doctor has now come into the role, or has he already, in a past story, found his groove in the role?
Yeah. Well, we just said how we think now we have a much better understanding of Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Because of the now previous context. And as far as, the last couple of serials, it was really only like those first 2 or 3 that we kept thinking, where is this guy going? Because from what we had seen in our tour, we didn't know, how does the guy that we're watching in Power of the Daleks get to the guy in... what is it? Not the Abominable Snowman. What's the next one?
The Web of Fear.
The Web of Fear. Yeah. So that was the only real consternation that we had, is we didn't know where he was and how he was going to progress. But definitely he stepped in. He is now the Doctor. He's not William Hartnell, but then he's never supposed to be William Hartnell. Yeah. But on the other hand, like those first 2 serials that we watched, we ultimately thought they should have been flipped because he had a much better person. What was the
Highlanders,
yeah. If they'd done the Highlanders first, we would have seen a little bit more of his, as you said, the more proactive Doctor, the one who says, I'm not just going to sit back and watch, I'm going to actually take part and help shape the events.
Which even, like, if we were watching this and we hadn't seen other episodes, we would watch Power of the Daleks and be like, okay, I'm not really getting much of his personality. Like, okay, maybe, like, I guess he's, just sort of secretive and maybe he's reserved, kind of like the first Doctor. But then you watch the Highlanders and it's like, this is not the same thing from the last episode. So it's like, okay, so we have this version that he had, and we had this version. Then you keep going. It's like, oh, okay, I can see how now those sort of intersect, but they are very separate for those first two. Yeah. So it definitely took a little while, but he is definitely the Doctor now.
Yeah.
So yeah. How is classic Doctor Who stacking up with new Doctor Who so far, now that you've almost completely caught up on new Doctor Who? So this is more of a question for me, as you've only really seen 4 episodes, if you count the 50th.
Yeah.
So, honestly, now it is getting a bit more into the show that I watch. Like, okay, like I see the similar formula now, and honestly, like these 4-parters are basically equivalent to a 2-parter on Doctor Who. It's like, okay, I see this, how it's working, and especially with the Doctor taking more of a leading role, because even though we originally said like, okay, Ian is sort of the lead role, and the Doctor, he stays back and he's very mysterious, but that even still continues with Hartnell, again, not being a very proactive Doctor. This is more of the Doctor that all the others will be based on, even if they have sort of different personalities. Yeah. They all sort of derive it from this point in Doctor Who. So, let's see. All right. And this is our last question here. Do either of you have theories or predictions for future episodes at any point in Classic Who? Any type of episode or storyline either of you would like to see happen?
Well, this almost happened in the Ancient Greek episode, where it almost, I guess it theoretically did happen in the Roman one too, where I would still like to see them go to some place where they know what's going to happen, and it's not happening. Where Nero didn't know that he was going to burn down Rome until the Doctor accidentally started the fire there, with his spectacles, and how the Greeks couldn't figure out how to get into the city of Troy, and the Doctor finally said, "Oh, good Lord, they're never going to come up with this, so I'm going to have to tell them about the horse." So, to me, again, as a historian, that's always fun. If you know what's supposed to happen, and then you're watching it and saying, "Oh, this isn't happening at all." So how are they going to weave in these modern people? And even if it's not the Doctor, even if it's an Ian or Barbara or a Vicky or a Stephen or Jamie or Victoria, how do they get them to accidentally cause history to happen? And it's kind of like that thing, like you said, with Tennant trying to alter history, and then the lady essentially canceling what he did out. To me that is the more fascinating part, is when you're watching a story and you absolutely know where it's going, and then it doesn't go there. And as a director, both a director of comedy and a director of drama, that's what you want. You want the audience to say, "I know exactly where this is going," and then you surprise them, and it's like, that's not it at all.
Yeah, there's a couple episodes of modern Doctor Who that sort of do that, where it's like, okay, the Doctor kind of has to be the cause of this, and they didn't even realize that they were a part of this. But those obviously still have the alien element. Like, something here is like, okay, there's some sort of alien thing here, and that's wrong. But then the Doctor messing with this, trying to prevent this alien thing, also leads them into being part of that history. So, and actually one of those episodes was an episode I watched just recently, and I was actually thinking, like, this is a really good, it was a 13th Doctor episode, and I was thinking this would be a really good introduction to the 13th Doctor, like how, we watched 9, 10, and 11 episodes. So I was thinking maybe sometime after we finish the second Doctor's era, or just sometime, we could watch that as maybe an introduction for you for the 13th Doctor. So, and then I've got another one in mind for the 12th Doctor as well, since those are the two you haven't seen yet. But yeah, like something like that, of the Doctor didn't even realize it, but they are a part of that history.
If I may just take 2 minutes here. I have what I call my patented theory of comedy, which fits into exactly what we're saying here. If you're watching television or you're watching on stage, and there's a man walking down the street, you see there's a banana peel on the sidewalk in front of him. The man slips on the banana peel and falls down. That's not funny, because you know that's what's going to happen. You see the banana peel, you see the man walking, you think to yourself, he's going to slip on the banana peel. When he does, that's not funny. So, my patented theory of comedy is this. Guy's walking down the street. There's a banana peel on the sidewalk. Man sees the banana peel on the sidewalk, steps over it, and falls into an open manhole. Now, see, that's funny because that's not at all what you were expecting.
Yeah.
And that's what Jeremy here is asking us. You know, what type of episode do you want to see? I want to see the doctor walking down the street, seeing the banana peel, stepping over it, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be very interesting. Of course, now I'm just imagining that actual visual of like Hartnell falling down a manhole cover. So yeah, I mean, for a specific type of episode, it would be that. For specific plot lines, the only thing I could think of would be like how they set up the logicians in this one. It's like, so there's probably still a bunch of them on Earth, you know, ready to do this conquest. And like, okay, we sent 2 off to deal with the Cybermen, but if that doesn't work, how are we going to do this? So that could also be an interesting episode. Yeah. But I don't know if they would ever sort of follow up on that.
Again, just a little footnote there. The original Star Trek, although they didn't do that exactly, they would often take a normal thing that happened on Earth and then take it to its logical extreme or illogical extreme. Like the episode with the gangsters. You know, what happened if somebody left behind a book on 1920 Chicago, and this very primitive society got that book and assumed that this was their Bible, and they literally patterned their entire society off of gangsters. Or what if the Roman Empire had never fallen? How would the Roman Empire look in the 20th century? So that sort of thing. That's the kind of thing, to take British history or French history or Russian history or South American or Australian history and do an alternative history. What if this one event had not happened? How would that have turned out? And of course, it's all allegorical, but again, that's part of what the learning thing is here. They started Doctor Who as a chance for kids to not only enjoy the historicals and the bug-eyed monsters, but also to let them learn from it. You know, here's things that have happened. It's in a slightly different form, but we want you to be able to learn from the mistakes of people in the past and from their successes.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that is that. That is our last question. We might do this again for Web of
that's
Fear.
kind of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the people who sent in the questions.
Definitely. This was very interesting, and we definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And that's our rewatch of Tomb of the Cybermen. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much that.
Pretty much it.
All right. Then, with all that being said, we're Alex and Ed from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.